Come one, come all. It's time to grow. Welcome to the Dorian Adams Motivation Show. On this channel, we focus on faith, family, friends, finance, and fitness, and a lot of other things in between. Today's topic is change is good. And of course, I'll give a little preamble in 1 second, but I do want to, as customary, to invite the creator, the power, the being that we exalt and adore and welcome into our lives.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's what I'm.
We want to invite him or her into the conversation and
book should be never.
allow that he impresses upon us information or some sentiment that we could walk away from this conversation with and grow and build into our lives. And actually, at the same time, let us impart words that will help somebody else possibly on this call without being a guru or a teacher. So the topic, change is good, is inspired by thoughts that I've had when I think back over my timeline in my life and I ask myself, I allow myself to laugh at myself at some of the things I've observed and thought that these are the ways that I'm going to move, and they was totally toxic and bad for me. But I ended up changing at some point and didn't find those same habits or them same ways of moving as valuable. They were no longer applicable. So I want to ask the group, what are some of the things that you've changed over your lifetime that makes you acknowledge that change is good?
Well, can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I guess nobody's saying anything, so I'll do my usual and lead off. Even though this is my first time with you guys, I really appreciate you guys having me here. So first of all, it's a change just doing this, hanging out with you guys, which I love. But when we were talking before we came on, you were talking about habits, and Dory and I had talked a few days ago about a book that how do you say it, kind of changed my life back about 40 years ago. And it was called The Greatest Salesman in the World. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it starts off with a principle that says good habits are the key to all success and bad habits are the unlocked door to failure. And it started off like what you guys were talking about, habits. And they started, I had to change my habits to that what I was doing to lay out something different, because I wanted something different for my life than what I was getting before and what I seen around me. I grew up in Detroit. And so I was looking at what was around me, and I said, hey, you know what? And it made sense to me. It resonated with me. I said, hey, habits. And I heard something else by Dr. Dennis Waitley in a book called Psychology of Winning. He says, habits are like cobwebs that turn into cables. And when you first start them, they break really easy, until you start getting them where they start, after a while, you can't get up without doing this thing. You can't move to your next step before I do this good habit, a good habit, by the way. So not bad habits. So that really started me off in a trajectory that's still going today with me. Is looking at my habits and what I'm doing. And by changing your habits, you can change your life, your destiny, and become and get rid of old stuff and move on to new stuff. So hope that wasn't too much.
No, that was fire. But quick question for you before we move forward.
Yes, sir.
Can you give us a scenario or a specific, something specific that you changed?
I could give you a lot, but I'll start off with one of the things that a couple of spiritual mentors I had me start doing some years ago. Number one was before I get up when I got up in the morning, the first thing I do before I did anything was roll through scripture. And you know, now I can't do without it. That was like 15 years ago, some of my mentors. And I'd say give you another one was when I went through a tough time, which is one of the reasons I got into sales and I had started working out is because the doctor took, I went through a tough time and my blood pressure rose to the ceiling and I couldn't sleep. And so they wanted to give me medication for my blood pressure. And I thought, that's the first time I ever read something on the side of a bottle. And I was like, boy, this thing's got a lot of side effects. And I said, how long I got to take this stuff? And they said, for the rest of your life. And my first thought was, there's no way I'm taking this stuff for the rest of my life. That's when I joined the gym. That's where Dorian and I met, you know, and that started my 40 years ago. So the way I view my health is, hey, I'm not taking that medicine if I don't have to. And I start working out at the gym and I view it as my habit. And that is my medicine that I've done for years and years and years and years. I'll be 65 here in a couple of months, but I've never stopped that habit. And so I ended up running gyms, by the way. That's what got me into sales because I believed in it and I could sell that. But that was one of the couple of big habits that really changed the trajectory of my life and got my health together, kept me healthy for the most part, you know. I wanted something different. I said, I'm not going to get old, fat, and out of shape and unhealthy and die young because I couldn't stop. I couldn't exercise, or I didn't exercise, or I choose, you know, let my appetites for sugar or you know whatever control me. I refuse to let them control me. I says the one thing I can control is my habits. Some other things that happen outside of your control, I can't worry about those. I only can worry about changing my own personal habits.
Right.
That's interesting. I want to respond to that really quick. So
Yes.
I do have my own response to your question, Dorian, but I'm gonna respond to this brother real quick. So that's
Appreciate it.
interesting that something that I've realized because I'm adamant fitness influencer myself, and you know every time that I speak with someone from an older generation, um, that is people from perhaps my father's generation or anywhere in between that and me. He's like 57 now. I have learned a lot about the importance of physical fitness, especially cardiovascular fitness. And, you know, I understand now that when we're dealing with mental health, it's it's at least 50% of the maintenance to be physically fit, to work on staying physically active. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't see the same drive that I see in young people now, and I don't know what it is, but for physical fitness for a lot of older people. And it's like when I try and convince them humbly, that is, I know my place and I'm still young. There's a lot of things I don't know, but there are a lot of things that I do know. And I'm like, if you could just convince yourself to work out and to get some exercise, you'd probably be appalled at how much of a difference the quality of your life would be. So,
Yeah.
I mean, when I see someone like you say how much, you know, how profound of an effect beginning to engage in regular exercise had on you, it's like, yeah, that's what I thought would happen. I mean, we all see on social media, you know, older people that are like ripped, shredded, out of their minds, and you can see that they still have a certain level of youthfulness to their personality and their even their cognitive abilities. And it
Yeah.
just bothers me when I look at them and, you know, they're suffering from all of these various, you know, physical illnesses or certain things are starting to develop. And I'm like, if only you knew, you know, that physical exercise is important. So I guess what I would ask is what do you think it was? Well, I guess you just said what triggered you to start working out, but
Yeah.
what do you think the
Well,
difference is between people that, you know, and around your generation that can get themselves back into physical fitness and people that don't? It just bothers. I just feel like that's something that's like it's like real foundational. Like everyone knows, right?
yeah.
Eat healthy, work out. But it's like it just doesn't happen anymore. So
My yeah. Thanks for that. What's your name again? It's your name again
John,
is John. Okay, John. Hey, thanks for asking me that question. I appreciate it. I had the privilege of like coming to work in the gym. after that, the gym that I joined, but also a crisis sent me there. So a lot of people take for
That
granted for
definitely
things.
is a helpful part. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So that got me, and I had lost both my parents were gone by the time I was 22. My father died when I was 19. My mother died almost 3 years to the day at 42. So he was 44, she was 42. So I was like, and then I worked in the gym for like 8 years, and I sold memberships, and they had to be sold. And so I sold them because I believed in them, and I heard all excuses, hey, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough this, and I would say, look, you can have all that, and if you don't have your health, it's not worth. I would talk people into memberships. People say you can't argue somebody into something. I would sit there and say, look, how important is your health? Okay, you got all this other stuff taken care of. You just came in here, you worked out. We see how out of shape you are, and so I also seen the behavior of people, and I studied the behaviors of when I would help get them in shape. And I'm sure Dorian can attest to this. And they take 6-8 months to get in shape, and they would yo-yo. And then I wouldn't see them for like 6-8 months. And then they come back and they go, oh man, I got to start all back over again. And so I got to see those cycles, and I determined, I said, you know what, the key is to be consistent. And I said, because I don't want to go through that pain of getting back in shape again. It hurts too much. And I've seen people do it. And so it's part of that. But I think the crisis led me to it. And also, I think when you're younger, I probably did the same thing, maybe, is you kind of take it for granted that, hey, you know what, you're young, you're healthy. But if you don't take care of it, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it eventually. And, there's some things out of your control that can happen, obviously, genetics and things like that, or sicknesses just hit you, or car rolls out of on the sidewalk and hit you. You can't do anything about that. So I don't worry about that. But the things I can control, I try to control as much as I can. But yeah, but that's a good question though. But it's it was something I really believed in, so I got really good at it, and worked my way up in that business quite well.
But something you're saying that strikes me when you say that, Jay, is James.
Yeah, either one. I'll answer either one. Don't worry.
Yeah. Now we got two J's on. You got John and you got James.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
The topic itself, you just trying to clarify your point, you brought up again the fact that change is good, but then what the whole thing that you guys were speaking on was the resistance to change for a lot of people. So that's why I felt, one of the reasons why I felt this topic was so important is because, just because I saw a need for change in my life, and I want to be clear about certain instances of that too. Because a lot of times we will allow things that happened in our life to be an elephant in the room and just act like we are who we are now by osmosis. And that's not the truth. You experience some stuff. That's why I said in the preamble of relaying the topic, talk about something that you actually changed because you realize the need for the change. You see what I'm saying? I can't just sit here and like, I'm here now, I'm good. That's what we a lot of times will do. Because we always want to have the perception and the image that we got it all figured out kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not saying pointing at no fingers at nobody, but let's look at identifying some specifics that says, guess what? Man, I was struggling with this. I changed it for the better. It got me from that point to this point.
Yeah.
Look at Benny.
Yeah. Come on, Benny, bring something, man.
Oh, look, he done called you out, man. You up here with the crab leg in your hand, say something.
What's going on with the brothers? God bless.
Hey, God bless.
Up,
There he is.
Yes, sir.
That man called you out. He don't even know you like that, man. What you got?
That's how we get to know each other.
Yeah, I'm just a fly on the wall. Soaking up some of this good knowledge.
Yeah. Well, we'll get back to you then. We'll get back to you.
If I could throw something out.
Okay, you got Caps with a mouthful of Cracker Jacks.
For me, right? I was at a point like in my life where I needed to do something about a change that like a lifestyle change, you know? And the lifestyle change, like it was stupid. Like I got so deep into this lifestyle that I didn't know how to get out of this lifestyle, you know? It was drinking, partying, and then after that it wasn't even partying anymore. It was just drinking and doing doing drugs and staying at home, you know? But I didn't know how to get out of that situation. And but I knew I needed to change. Um and where I'm going with this is that, man, like what John was saying, the small habits that we change, right? And all it takes is that maybe that one night of not doing it, right? And then maybe going to a different thing, doing instead of drinking, going to maybe a meeting, or going somewhere where it's not alcohol related or drug related, um and I started doing things like that in my life, like just I took it like I took it very seriously because I knew I had to change because my life was going to a different end. Now, what I'm seeing in my life now is that it took me a minute to get here. And even when I did, like, I'm still working on myself and still trying to get, it's a constant work. Like, change is always happening, right? Change is always happening. So we're constantly growing. If you want to grow in life, you want to be able to adapt to change, even if it's good or bad, right? Because um, I came across, like, saving some money and then having people live with me and maybe being a service to them too, because they're in the same boat as I am. Maybe they don't, so I was like trying to do that. But then there are parts of me that, is it my will that I'm pushing, or is it God's will? Because then I started to see myself as playing more of a role of a God, like playing God. Um I'm starting to see, like, even certain changes, like I had to let things go, and I didn't know how to let things go. Like, having people staying in my house um was probably not a good idea, but it was a good idea at the time. Um and now that I look at it, like, even if it's money or anything like that, if it's not good for your health or your mental health or your physical health, you have to make a decision on, like, letting them go and then moving forward, and sometimes it's like your financial aspects are like, oh man, I could save so much money here, right? I could make so much, I can have money in my pocket extra. But now I'm starting to realize, like, is your, like, change has to be like something that's beneficial for you, not because, like, you're trying to do, like, save some money or do things that are not going to be really helpful for you in the long run. And I'm starting to learn this about myself, is that, you know um I'm like I codepend on people to be where they're at, but I can't. You can't have your cake and eat it too, and you got to be the one just holding it down no matter what, and change has to be within yourself.
Good stuff.
Legit. So here, that was fire, man. Let me drop this on y'all. I was just looking at something, and I was looking at the benefits of change. And these are just some stuff that you could pull up on Google or search or whatever. It says you become more flexible when you change. It says your lifestyle is enhanced. You are more motivated. You develop more skills. You become more compassionate. You attract more opportunities, right? So every one of them things in my book says that change is going to go in your favor. You know what I mean? A lot of the downside for me was similar, I guess, to what you was experiencing, Caps, because what I was doing is attracting destitute and bankrupt situations into my life, trying to go balls to the wall and become an overnight sensation. Right? So I had to find a happy medium between immediate and self-gratification and just being okay with existing in my own skin at whatever place I was in my life financially, accepting the warmth and the love of the people that really had my back and you know, had my best interests at heart, and letting that be enough. You know what I'm saying? Because I was overlooking the thought that my whole life, people that wasn't giving me $1 million and all the rest of this covered me with love. You know what I mean? But then I wanted to explore what I saw outside of that and thought that that was everything instead of just acknowledging what I had already, you know. But I want to hear from Zach. I know I was just dropping it out there. I'm sorry, y'all. Mr. Zach.
No, you good, man. You nailed it on the head there. I mean, it's like, you know, when you do change for you know, because everybody wants more and more and more and more, but you know, realizing what is enough to make you happy. You know, for me, I mean, you know, Dorian knows, but you know, a couple months ago, my whole life just took a fucking whirlwind. 14 years of my life just seemed to disappear. So I went to old habits.
Mm-hmm.
And they were bad habits. And I got down and low, and you know, I realized that no, I am good enough and I need to change habits. I need to do better for myself. And doing the simplest things, I mean, going back to, you know, that atomic book, I mean, it's the little things that add up over a short period of time that you can look back and go, holy crap, this is great. You know, and now I got new friends. I'm in a new place. I got work. I'm happy doing work. I'm happy with my new friends. I got people that love me for me. Don't give a shit about anything else. And it's you know, it goes back to what you said. You know, it's enough for me. It's exactly what I need. You know, I don't have too many far expectations of stuff right now because I just don't want them. I'm happy where I'm at.
So with that being said, Zach, do you feel like what's your take on what's your take on the I'm trying to form my words right. Like, so for instance, you experience life and stuff is thrown at you, so to speak.
Sure.
In what situation would you give yourself permission to endure that same pain at your own hands? Like, would you, you know what I mean? You learned this lesson, this thing just happened. What reason would you put yourself in the same situation?
Maybe to reteach or reevaluate certain things. Maybe just to go through it again to let myself know that I can do this and I can get through it.
So I guess let me make sure we're on the same page. What I'm saying is like,
yeah, we're not on the same page.
You know, I feel it. No worries. But what I'm saying is like, a situation happens that causes you to change. It causes you to say, no, the pain from this situation or whatever the effects that I'm getting out of it ain't my bag. I'm out. I don't want this. Right. So having had one of those situations or multiple, what reason would you give yourself permission to go back to that, doing that same thing?
I wouldn't.
Right.
No way. Nope.
Damn.
But so this is really, really helpful right here. But we do it all the time.
All the time, sure. It's inevitable.
We do it all the time.
But it's also the fact of, have we really learned Have we really learned from that bad habit
Come on,
if we're going
right?
back to it?
Did I get enough of that?
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So
Did I
you
get
have
enough?
this
Well, I can tell you
epiphany.
right now, I got plenty. My ass ain't going back to that shit.
Right, right. But so here it is, brothers. Here it is. This is the manly conversation that we need to have. We have it on these calls, and when the moment happens, it happens. But I just want to make sure I press in on this and acknowledge it for what it's worth, because we are our brother's keeper in that sense a lot of times. If I allow my brother to go down this road, do this thing again, or whatever it is, just because they strong and they're a soldier and they're a warrior and they talk with their chest, I cannot back down from my job when I know this person's finna make a move and go down the path that he really don't want to go down. I need to reach out. I need to wrap arms around that brother and say, bruh, where did this lead you before? I need to find a way to communicate that to this brother, that you about to go on the same journey that you just learned the lesson from. And that's if we can. If we are close enough to somebody that we in that close to them, we need to make that our number 1 priority. Because sometimes, as smart as we is, if we'll cut our damn own head off with our thoughts. If that makes sense.
Can I add something biblical to this?
Right? Let's go.
I told you I start reading scripture every day, and sometimes it's so deep when you read it all the time. Something you read like 50 times will jump out at you. And one day, this scripture in James 4:17, it said basically it goes like this: therefore, if you know the good you ought to do and you don't do it, it's sin for you. I was like, where did that come from? It hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, because a lot of times we think, hey, it ain't none of my business. I just won't do anything, and I'll just pretend I didn't see that or whatever. But it says, if you know the good you ought to do and you don't do it. And then I started thinking about being a Christian as I am. And I heard some of you are, which is great. And I think about the story of the Good Samaritan. Why was he good? Because a guy had been beaten and robbed on the side of the road, and everybody passed by him but the one guy, and he took him and fed him. And I said, and I started thinking about it, and I said, we all play a role in that parable. We can be the robber that puts the man in the ditch. We could be the man in the ditch. We could be the one to walk by, or we can be the Good Samaritan. And I don't think we have a choice, because if you know what's good, you can't do everything, but if you know what's good and you can, because I hear a lot of, I'm gonna call it fellow Christians who don't think they should be involved in this and don't do this. I said, no, if it's good, guess what? We're called to do it. We have to. Otherwise, it's wrong. So, no, we got to help each other.
So on that note,
Got it.
Yes, sir.
you said something that got my attention.
Because like on the way to the meeting, when I was driving home, there's a song. It's Leonard Skinner, and it's called "Simple Man," and it just talks about a mother talking to her son on what she wants from him, and just be a simple man. Help, do what you can, and just be a simple man. That's all the whole song's about. Same thing. But I have a curious question though, to draw back on it. So when we know, and this is something I've always tried to figure out with my own self, we know that something's good and we're supposed to do something good, and we know something's bad. Why do we do the bad? Why do we do the bad even though we know it's gonna be bad?
Self-gratification.
It's not gonna turn out very well.
That's easy.
But we still do it.
Yeah, self-gratification. Self-gratification and immediate gratification. You'll push repercussions out of the window in exchange for self-gratification and immediate gratification. Right? Repercussions. How about this? Bruh, repercussions. My ass, see, I'm talking about me. My ass so desperate for the come up, I done ran up in folks' bank, bro, with a damn note talking about give me the money. I ain't got no disguise on, little sunglasses, like, you know what I mean? And this was the wave that when I say you doing stuff that you change, bro. I saw a need to change that along with a lot of other stuff, but that's just one case in point. The repercussions behind a bank robbery, you definitely getting your ass locked up. Right? And it ain't gonna be probation.
Mhm.
So, but you still did it, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that self-gratification. You hit it, you know. It's pushing right up to that thin red line of the repercussions are forever, or I'm gonna get away with it.
Hey,
Man,
Zach,
I never thought about it that way.
like a damn junkie wanting another fix. I want this shit right now. You know what I'm saying?
good point. That's a good point. I would also add that
Yeah.
again, from a biblical perspective,
Mhm.
it says basically we're fallen.
Like, hey, you want to go this? Let's do it.
Oh, hear me?
Go
Yeah,
ahead,
I
Jay.
said
Go ahead,
from a
sorry.
biblical perspective, I say we're fallen creatures, you know, and it says it right there. So the world's broken and men are fallen. If I kind of look at it that way, and I go like, so it's a battle between our flesh because our body just wants to do what it wants to do, and it's about the discipline to say no, you're gonna do what I'm gonna tell you to do, body and my flesh, and it's gonna control us, or we're gonna control it, and we gotta let that takes a lot of discipline, and it takes, like I said, my daily reading. Let me tell you, if I get off track, stuff will throw me off during my day. That'll get me to lose my temper, you know, or I say, God, how did they get me? I say, you know what? I missed doing this today. I was off my game. And so I really worked, Zach, on every day on being on my game and setting that solid foundation underneath me of daily reading before I do whatever your habit is. And I go, okay, now I'm ready for the world. I'm ready for anything that gets thrown at me. I'm not going to let it throw me off. Because as men, I mean, I think this world, I think, how do you call it? I just listened to a podcast talking about toxic masculinity, and I go like, wait a minute, why is masculinity toxic? We're men, okay, but we got to control, you know, that masculinity. I call it biblical. I says God is pictured as a lion and a lamb. You know, Jesus, a lion and a lamb. So it's like, so yeah, when it's time to be a lion, we got to be lions. And then sometimes with our kids I got 2 girls. Hey, they make me gentle as a lamb all the time. I can't, you know, they got me wrapped around their finger, man. I tell you. But if somebody messes with them, I turn into a lion. And I think that balance, you know, what you're talking about, Zach, is I think is what you kind of getting at. It's like, well, how do you do it? And I think, hey, I think in this society, men, we let ourselves get a bad rap. Let's put it that way. But I think it's very few of us around like you guys doing something like this. I love this, you know, because we need each other. I mentor like 2 guys who were
Yeah, this is great.
young men who are struggling in their marriages. They, for whatever reason, they come to me. You know, God drew them into me, and we talk every couple of days. You know, about this deep stuff that's happening in their marriage. You know, and none of us are perfect. That's also the other thing you got to realize. And so, so when I look at those big pictures, I go, okay, I got to keep myself on track. Eventually somebody's going to get me off track, and somewhere I'm going to drop my guard and they're going to get hit by a hook. But okay, I learned I drop my guard. I'm going to try to keep my guard up. It's going to happen sometime, but you know, and then I go back to the game plan, you know.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm yakking. You guys got me wound up today, man. Y'all got me fired up, Zach.
No, you're good, man. No,
So
I mean, I love these meetings.
let me
When I get a
piggyback
text message
on the
from Dorian, it's
habit.
like, hey, we're gonna do a meeting. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. So what you
Dorian's
just
awesome.
said
Because we
is
don't, you know,
really,
as
really
men, we
profound.
don't talk about our stuff.
When you talk about that habit of centering yourself spiritually, right? I would be an advocate of that. I'd be a voice for that because I find it to be instrumental in my day to literally roll out of the bed being thankful and saying, wait, what? You woke me up again? Like, I get a real thing going on with that, because that's the acknowledgement and excitement that I start my day with. Like, what? All this that I done been through, like, I'm beyond words to sit here and say, yesterday, what I went through, what I did, what I came up out of was good enough for today. Yesterday is gone. I'm gonna start today. Man, you said it, but I'm just saying how powerful that is for me. You start the day fresh. If you start already with a half-ass, lumped up ass attitude, you carrying that into the only day you got. So I'm like, bro, when you
There's an
said
old
that,
Buddhist
man, come on.
proverb.
Question is, how do you think as leaders we can encourage that in other people's life? Because that's how
Real
much
quick,
of
I
a
wanted to
value
say
it is
something
to me. I
what you
would
just said.
love to be a voice for that mind state, just to help people with that perspective. How do you feel like we could encourage others to do that?
There's an old Buddhist proverb. Let's see if I can remember how it is. It's the past is behind you, the future is unwritten. The future and today is called the present because it's a gift. But I just want to add that on top of what you were talking about.
Okay. What you think, Jane?
I don't know how to lead.
You say Jay or James? Was that to me?
James, yeah, James, my bad.
I'm sorry. That's okay. I didn't hear what you said. I had a thought, but then I sat here and marinated too long. Y'all got me thinking way too hard, which is good. Um, the question was how. I'm sorry. Back up the question one more time, Dorian. I'm sorry. It was like
acknowledging the
how can we encourage others? Thank you.
Encourage to set their day like you said.
Yeah. And I think what we're doing now is like, hey, like I hope like after this call that I can be on some more with you guys if you don't throw me out of here. I'll be thinking about something Zach said, or I'll be thinking something. Dorian and I, we see each other at the gym every couple of days, and we have about 5 minutes, and we just beat it, for a couple minutes, and we're like, yeah, man, yeah, that's a deep thought, And I think just keeping in touch with each other and thinking about, because like I said, there's a lack. I believe this society today, I believe, and I can point out all kind of data on it, that men are the key. And I'm gonna say family particular, but the men in particular, we're either gonna get this whole thing right through God living through us, but taking our rightful places as men and being true leaders in this country and in this world, or else it's all going to go to hell in the hands basket. I look at all kind of stats on father. Me and Dorian and I were talking about this. We were looking at all kind of stats on fatherlessness, like all the fallout from it, and the stats will make you cry. And I started looking at not only my own life, me and my best friend, we were talking a couple of nights ago. Like I said, I'm from Detroit. I'm here in California, obviously, but we were talking a couple of nights ago, and we started thinking, we had a good little crew of about 6 or 7 friends, that we always hung out with since we've been about 10. And I started thinking, I says, man, I says, we all know each other's mothers, but none of us knew each other's fathers. Ain't that a trip? I just started thinking about that at night. So when you don't see that, how do you learn how to become a good father? How do you learn? I think, Zach, you mentioned it. You kind of alluded to that. Like, where do you learn it from? And
Right.
and I think that's where this kind of stuff comes into handy by, like I said, mentoring other people, making friends with good men, and encouraging us together. Because I don't think any man is an island, and I think there's a lot, I can tell you a lot of stuff. Dorian knows I'm a big reader and listener and even teacher. And I can tell you a lot of stuff that the fallout from even my life and other people's lives, and it affects women, the girls, everybody not having a father in the home. And I'm like, wow. I says, marriages and stuff like that. And it's like, and I'm guilty of one divorce in my 20s, just tell you right now. But I said, I've been married for 27 years now, just past my 27th year, but by the grace of God. But it's like, but you talking about change and breaking habits. We got an uphill battle, but we can win it. But it's going to start with stuff like this. And, you mentioned change. That says, also, I think change is also conforming to what's true. Okay. Because sometimes if I like to debate a lot of times. And I think, well, if you're really looking for truth and you're debating somebody, you can say, you know what, that's a good point. You're right. I gotta change and say, you know what, I said that and that's not right. And I gotta conform to what is true and right. And so that's another type of change that I think we have to deal with too. Because if you're looking for truth, it humbles you. And you go like, you know what?
What you
Yes.
just said, James, let me just interrupt you right
Please.
quick. What you
Please.
just said was one of the things that was on that list that I read about. When you change, you become more flexible. If I'm too resistant to change and I'm so rigid in my thought process or my movements, my habits, that I will not bend, I miss out.
Yeah.
I miss out. That flexibility allow you, because I could take a full-on hit, or I could adjust a little bit and it grazed me, right? So how, you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
don't have to be I win.
No, it's not about winning. Because if you're looking for truth, you always win. Because you can say, I was wrong. I got an ex-best friend right now. And the guy will never admit that he's wrong. And I after a while, he did me wrong on something and our friendship. And
Life like that.
yeah, he did me wrong, really. And he came back and we started talking recently, and I kind of like nothing happened, and I kind of broached it a little bit, and finally I just went at it full on. I said, brother, I says, what you did was wrong. I says, he mentioned something about something being radical. I said, what's radical is when you break a friendship up like over nothing, like you did me. I said, but I said, it'd take 2 little words to fix it. And I'd be willing to forgive him. I says, the 2 words are, I'm sorry. I said, but you can't, I told him, I said, you can't bring yourself to say that. I said, we all have to be willing to say, I'm sorry.
I got one
I
of
was
those
wrong.
right now.
Hey, when you marry 27 years, you learn how to say that a lot, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry. I was wrong.
Oh, believe me, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I just
wanted to chime in on
good.
that.
Go ahead, Zach.
But to go back to your question, I think it still goes back to leading by example. The way you carry yourself, the way you're a friend, the way you're a brother in arms, the way you're just a person. And when people see that, it betters them. It makes them want to change and be better. When you guys were talking, I'd sitting there thinking about the past couple months and where I'm at, and I've noticed I've done that a lot for a couple of guys. And I didn't really realize it until just now. I think if you're going to be a leader and try to help somebody, I think it still goes back to example. Just showing them the right way to do, and it's not necessarily the right way to do. It's just the way you're doing it. It's something that works for you, and to be humble.
And I like that, Zach. See, what you're saying is when you're leading by intention, that for me, that's the deeper aspect of what you're saying, because I know a fake ass person when I see him. See, so the whole thing is you could be popping off leadership, but it's fake. As a real dude, I consider myself lightweight real. As a real person, I got one way I'm gonna look at that. But even at the same time, if I'm a blind person and can't even see you, I'm gonna
Mhm.
feel it because I'm gonna feel
Right.
God. Right? So the thing
Right.
is, at the same time,
Like
I'm a witness to what you put in the streets. That's the change. I'm a witness over here, and you sending. Right? And you sending based on
Right.
a genuine position or whatever it is you convicted with what you're saying, and I'm gonna receive it as such. If there's no identification, I'm not gonna change. I'm not gonna grow. I'm not gonna do nothing because of what you said. Simple. I'm
Right.
probably gonna go the other way. Blind as hell, tripping over shit. Let me get away from this dude. Right?
Yeah.
But we just got, we
Yeah.
gotta look at, we gotta acknowledge that, bro, in ourselves. We got it.
I mean, it's just like I've got this right for us, and he's not very experienced, but in the past, and this even goes back to habits, I would just get frustrated in the past and just be like, done, you're fired, fuck off. Excuse my French. But this kid, he's a hard worker, he's trying to learn, and I'm trying to get through to him that the simple thing of if you don't know something, just tell me and I will teach you. And it's, you know, there's been quite a few things where he's just going off and he's doing stuff, and it's the wrong thing to do, and it's the wrong thing to do. And I'm finding myself that I'm catching myself from getting pissed off and going, hey man, he just doesn't know. So then I come back and I go, look man, if you don't know, just tell me and I will teach you how to do it. Like I found, I think that's one of the big habits that I've broken is patience.
So what do you see in this young cat?
He's eager. He's a hard worker. He just wants to work. And he does want to learn. He's just, you know, I think he hasn't had very good leaders in his life to teach him, and I think he's just kind of winged it. You know,
You've been looking for you,
he's
Zach.
a talker. I mean, when you get him talking, man, he just
Yeah.
that boy starts talking. He just oh yeah.
Do you see any of yourself, your former self in him?
Yeah, I do.
So you know what to do.
Oh yeah, I do, and I think that's a big reason.
Yeah, you know what to do. But you know what's funny too, though? Listen,
patient.
watch this. My ex used to say this. One of my exes used to always say, yeah, they always say, if you live old enough, you get to see what your parents was going through, right? And so when you say that, I look at the aspect of when like I referenced, do you see yourself in him? Because now you're going to witness another level of growth by acknowledging how hard it might have been to deal with you and what you might have needed to get through those
I know I was
or
hard to
whatever
deal
it
with.
was when it was happening. You see what I'm saying? And so like you get, it's a bitter pill, bittersweet pill. Right, right. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. That's the thing I'm challenged with a lot too, as a motivational speaker, and I want to be a youth outreach conduit. You know, I have to really internalize all of those different things, and at the same time, that because I'm brimming with joy to be available for this younger group or this fellow man, don't mean that they there. You know, so they say when the student's ready, the teacher's going to appear. But at the same time, I have to have a knowledge and a patience that you talked about, probably beyond what I'm ready to actually display. So I got to be willing to really do the hard work if I mean business about being the conduit and the bridge that I want to be. I got to. I can. It ain't no fumbling. It ain't we can't give ourselves permission to be talking about, oh, I blew my freaking cool. And then talk about it like you got man, I blew my cool. Fuck that mother. Really? So this is a moment that you cannot be grateful right now, right? This is just literally, I get to hear your little crying ass whining to justify you blew your cool in a situation that you could have changed somebody's life.
Yeah.
Hello.
Right.
Well, I would add, I would say everybody's going to blow their cool at one time or another. It's how you react once you do it. Because there's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, I blew it. I'm sorry. You
No,
know,
it can
because
happen.
yeah, it can
Mhm.
happen. And so I would say, but I heard something. One of my mentors, a guy I know, who he goes around. He does Christian apologetics on college campuses and takes all kind of questions. And somebody asked him on one of his podcasts. He says, "Dr. Turek, when I ask you these crazy questions on college campuses, how do you have the patience to deal with it?" And what he said to me was very powerful. He said, because 40 years ago, I was just like one of those guys right there asking all these crazy, what do you think is crazy questions about religion, about God, and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting perspective, because like you alluded to earlier, like Zach, Dorian, you said about Zach, is like, yeah, I was probably just like that guy when I was younger. And it really is a humbling thing that it makes you take a step back and say, okay, how can I reach? And I even think about my two daughters. I think me and my wife sometimes, you know, they're not tracking sometimes on the same religious level that we are. And I had to remind her and remind myself. I said, well, you know what? When I was in my 20s, I grew up in a Christian home. And then when I was in my early 20s, hey, I was out there doing my own thing for 5, 6 years, you know, just living like whatever, you know, and then but God's, you know, he brought me back. And so, or I came back, however you want to call it. But so I said, hey, so sometimes you got to give people room, you know, to
Right.
mess up, you know,
Right.
and
Right.
watch the process. You guided them, take your
Yeah.
hands off of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he's got this thing where it's a saying I called and it's in my trade. It's called created the monster. So he knows a lot of little things about a lot of different things. But because of that, he thinks he knows everything.
Right.
So and that was me, 100%.
Hey, who, me? You talk
100%.
about me, Zach?
100% that was me. You know, but it's like I'm trying to, and I think that's where I see myself in him because of that. And it's like, slow down, reevaluate, take a breath. Don't know something, say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good kid, man. He really is. He's got a lot of potential.
Well, it sounds like you growing as a teacher through the process. If what I'm hearing is that, which is
I
awesome.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Leader. That's great.
Yeah, and you know, I don't mind teaching people stuff. I mean, you know, you got to learn somewhere.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna learn it from the book. You know, the stuff that I do, you don't learn from a book. You learn it with your hands on the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to point out, you were talking about when you get older and older people. I also had another saying with elderly people that I tend to blurt out in public. When an older couple or folks do something that's annoys somebody, I'll look at them and I'll go, you know what? We'll all get there one day if we're lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's good. That's good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's the old person you fumbling around and just can't just like, yeah, well, we'll get there one day if we're lucky.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Give them some breaks.
Give it enough time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and
Yeah.
on that note, yeah, absolutely.
Give it
That's where
time, man.
we gotta revisit the topic of this conversation, which is change is good.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is, at some point we're gonna have to make
Change is
some.
great.
It's gonna be some changes that take place that we ain't really ready for. That's gonna happen no matter what. And just prepare ourselves to deal with change with a certain mindset. You know, that way. I mean, for
Sure.
me, I think one thing about change that I think about is the getting older aspect. Because I know as you get older, you lose mobility, stuff like that. A lot of us just tend to get up out of a seat, sit down, get up, sit down. And so you got stuff like that that will actually lead to accelerating degenerative processes as you get older, because this is a natural thing. But when you offset it by doing stuff like mobility exercises, you know, working out in the gym, stuff like that, like James talked about, you can kind of offset that balance, that, you know, that downhill decline. And so my thing is, guess what? Change is gonna happen, and it's good, but in some ways I can kind of offset that. I don't have to just sit there and be a, you know what I mean, a victim of it,
Yeah.
right? And so, yeah, it's just stuff like that,
Gotta
just
get
staying
up and do
conscious and staying aware, you know. But yeah, I want to wrap it up, man. I feel like this is just a energy charged call,
Mm.
you know, and I appreciate you brothers' input.
Can I add
Um,
something? If you got a second, Dorian?
Go ahead. Yeah. I'll
I
wrap
was
it up
gonna
after you get
say,
done.
I think of like having mentors and people to look at, like having a guidance star. Like when I started off in you know, working out, um, and looking at what I wanted in life in different areas of my life, one of the physical, what do you call it, guys I looked at, and I know you, I don't know if you both of you heard of him, Jack LaLanne.
Mhm.
Well, he was my guiding star physically. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Zach, but he was just the guy who started the exercise craze back in the 50s. And my mother and back in the 50s and 60s, they would be, he had a TV show, and all the old wives back in those days when my mother would be doing exercise to this guy on TV. Well, that guy stayed in tip-top condition until his 90s. In tip-top condition. He was rowing boats across the San Francisco Bay, 100 boats on his back when he was in his 80s and stuff like that. And I said, I want to have a physical life like that. And I said, that guy didn't miss a beat. And then when it was his time to go, I think he was 93. He got sick, and about 8 days later, he was gone. And I said, now he wasn't laying in the hospital with hips. You know the usual stuff you get when you're in your 80s and whatever, you know, 70s and 80s, you know. And it was like, I said, hey, that's I might not get there, but that's the you know, the model. So I think having somebody like that, even spiritually, fatherhood, I had big brother figure or whatever, it kind of helps you get that motivation and that star to look after, to shoot for. At least it gives it to
Facts.
Yeah.
Because when you sometimes we don't fathom stuff until we witness it.
Yeah. And when you do it, you go for it. It's like, hey, I may not get there, but I'm gonna die trying. I'm you know, whether it be whatever I'm doing, you know, you got to have a vision, you know, so a purpose on it. But change, like you said, is a deep subject, and we're doing it all. Hey, the last thing, I'm going through it now. I was telling Dorian about it, Zach. I said I'm going through, like I'm at that age now where I'm looking at, hey, you know, is it time to retire, do something else? It's time to keep working, do this, do that, and other. I ain't gonna retire in the traditional sense, but if I do, I'm gonna be doing something, you know. So I'm hitting that stage of life, you know. I may not look at it.
I went backwards. But I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I was retired. Shit. Now I'm not.
Back at it, yeah.
Well, shoot.
But
Hey,
I'm happy not being retired.
let's end this thing on that high note, y'all. Because I'm pretty sure we can find some avenues and some rabbit holes to go down if we keep on going.
Yeah.
But I just want to thank you guys for being on the call. Just extend my gratitude to you guys. And as we close it out, I want to be reminded that, in my opinion, it's a source that brought us here and that had us here on this call together. Hands down. And that source, as I express him, is God. So I want to thank and acknowledge him for the impression that I'm going to walk away from this meeting with. I'm going to walk away with something. It's already there. I don't know exactly what it is. It might be a few somethings, right? But in my opinion, when it comes to him, the math is definitely math, and he do what he do. And just pray blessings over you guys, over your families, and over everything you put your hands on. And pray that we see another day and another opportunity to do this again, right?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna close it out with that, guys. I'll see y'all on the next one.
Keep it real. Good talking to you, Zach and Doran. I'll be seeing you in the gym.